the camera cut off just as I was headed to the stop button. But we were talking about what was inside the Korean War Memorial Museum, and let's start from the start. Okay, so inside the Korean War Memorial Museum was an exact copy of everything that was found in Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. Of course, it was a copy, so of course the gold was not gold. But I was there for several hours, and it was very interesting, and it answered some questions that I had, some dilemmas that I was having in my search for information. Um, and seeing everything that was made that was like everything that came from Egypt was very interesting. Um, and Egypt has come into every situation I can name. I mean, I'm walking to a food store and I look across at a Korean War Memorial Museum, and there is an exhibit on Tutankhamun. Kathy and I were playing a trivia game, and one of the questions, and there must be hundreds of thousands of questions in there, was exactly about a character I was studying Egyptian history at the time. A very interesting character we'll talk about later, whose name was Queen Hatshepsut. Um, but in the trivia game, her name came up. It's like, what? And every time I read a book, every time I look on the internet, there's something about Egypt, ancient Egypt. Every time I look on YouTube, there's something about Egypt. Every time I run into somebody, talk to somebody, it's always about Egypt. Friends I know from Egypt are calling me and talking to me. And everywhere I looked, it was Egypt. And I can't help but wonder, how is that? And I kind of wonder, what could it mean? Is the Lord trying to tell me something? Well, the scope of this project is to go from the time of Joseph from the time of Abraham to the time of the Exodus, and to study everything in that time frame. And the time frame from Egyptian history corresponds in every way to the time frame of the Bible. When you're talking about Abraham, to the time of Joseph, to the time of the Exodus. The events that happened in Egypt, the people who lived in Egypt, the times are the same. And it's very interesting. And the intent is to show that ancient Egypt is littered with the history of the Bible. But it's very difficult to tell that from the onset, because of course, Akhenaten is not mentioned in the Bible, of course. Neither is Tutankhamun. Amenemhet III, who I believe was the pharaoh of the famine during the time of Joseph, his name is not mentioned in the Bible, but he is. And and the pharaoh of the Exodus, whom I believe was Tutmosis III, he's not mentioned in the Bible, but details about him are mentioned that are very interesting. So let's go on to Tutankhamun and more questions. How are we doing for time? Uh-oh, I forgot to put the timer. I guess we'll just stop whenever it stops. Tutankhamun's intact tomb was found in 1922 and was the archaeological find of the ages. Let's go ahead and read a quote. With trembling hands, I made a tiny breach in the upper left-hand corner, widening the hole a little. I inserted the candle and peered in. At first I could see nothing, the hot air escaping from the chamber, causing the candle to flicker. Presently the details of the room emerged slowly from the mist, strange animals and statues, and gold, everywhere the glint of gold. For the moment, an eternity it must have seemed to the other standing by, I was struck dumb with amazement. And when Lord Carnarvon, unable to stand the suspense any longer, inquired anxiously, "Can you see anything?" It was all I could do to get out the words, "Yes, wonderful things." That's Howard Carter's diary, November 29th, 1922. So you can see over here, there's this picture here where they are looking into the burial chamber, which would be this chamber right here. And this right down here is what they would have seen when they were looking into the doorway that way. Howard Carter and Arthur Callender, an Egyptian tomb worker, opened the doors of the shrines of the burial chamber for the first time in 3,000 years.